definition of marriage, even the definition of what it means to be a man and what it means to be a woman. There's so much chaos and confusion out there. And sometimes a Catholic can pat themselves on the back. Well, I believe in marriage. And again, this is wonderful. But that doesn't make you a great Catholic. That doesn't make you a saint. We have to do those things, but that's just the first step. The big question is, am I growing in holiness? Am I growing in my imitation of Jesus? Do I mind the gap in my spiritual life? Am I pursuing Christ? So I want to talk about now, how do we live as a disciple? Practically, what are some things we need to do? So first of all, we'll go back up to the screen. One basic step I want us to keep in mind is there an interior movement toward God, toward striving to imitate Jesus? I'm not just going through the motions. I'm not just showing up at church, saying some prayers, but I really do notice the gaps in my relationship with God. I notice the ways I fall short in my marriage. I'm not as good of a husband as I should be. I should be kinder. I should have been more thoughtful. I could be a better father in these ways. Do I notice the gaps in my life? And am I really trying, with God's grace, to be better? Is there this movement upward? When I take my kids to the mall in the United States, there's all these malls and they have escalators. And my little kids love the escalators. And they love to go up the escalators. They love to run up the escalators. But guess which escalator they love to run up? It's not the one going up. It's the one going down. They always love the idea of running up the downward escalator. I have to chase them. No, get back here, But when you're going up a downward escalator, you have to work really hard, don't you? Yes. Because it's taking you downwards. You got to work extra hard to try to make it up, and they love conquering the downward escalator. But what happens if you're on that downward escalator and you're not trying hard? What happens? The escalator takes you down. If we are not living intentionally, seeking to mind the gap and imitate Jesus, then what happens? Our own fallenness, our own original sin, our own weakness will just take us down. So that's why that first step of the spiritual life is so important. It's simply that minding of the gap. I'm seeking to imitate Jesus. I'm striving to root out sin. I'm striving to overcome certain weaknesses, defects in my character. I really want to imitate Jesus more. And have you ever had that experience in your life where you start noticing certain weaknesses and you say, I'm going to try to be better at this. Lent is coming up. I'm going to go after this in Lent. Do you ever do that? Once you're, especially maybe in our adult age, and we start owning the faith for ourselves as adults, your faith takes off. It makes sense to you, and you want to live more and grow in holiness. When you strive to be better, it's really, really easy, right? You find out how hard it is. Right? Because when you weren't trying to be better, to be a better husband or wife, or you weren't trying to be a better Christian, when you were just kind of coasting, you didn't notice. You're just kind of going with your own weakness. But now that you're trying to overcome weakness, you realize how hard it is. I want to tell you about one of my daughters. We can put up the next slide here. My youngest daughter, that's little Eleanor. I want to tell you a story about Eleanor. Have you ever seen a child take their first step?
Yes.
Is that always a fun moment when a baby takes their first step?
Yes.
I got to tell you, that is amazing. But there's something I love even more, that's even more exciting than a baby's first step. And you know what it is? It's the baby's first jump. The first time the baby tries to jump. Have you ever seen that? This is hilarious. So Eleanor's our youngest. So her 7 older siblings were trying to teach her how to jump this last year. And they were all excited. They'd go in a circle, and they'd put her in the middle, and they'd all be jumping up and down like this. And then she would try to jump, but didn't quite know how to do it. And so they would try to teach her, say, okay, Eleanor, bend your knees. And so Eleanor would squat down and bend her knees, and they would count down. Ready? 3, 2, 1. And then they would all jump like this, and then Eleanor would go like this. No takeoff. She didn't get up in the air. And then they would be laughing, and she would be laughing. They say, okay, let's try again. Ready? Bend the knees. And she'd bend her knees, and she'd be all excited. And they go, 3, 2, 1, jump. And they'd all jump. And then once again, she can't get off the ground. And she'd laugh and they'd laugh, but after about 7 or 8 times trying and having failure every time, Eleanor wasn't laughing anymore. She was getting frustrated. She was getting angry. I really think she was just getting discouraged. And when you try something and then it just keeps not working, and you keep trying and it just keeps not working, you can get discouraged. You can despair. And guess what little Eleanor started to do? She just wanted to give up. She didn't want to try anymore. And so she started saying, no jump, no jump. And she'd walk away and didn't want to do it anymore. I share the story because I think that can happen to us, children of God, in our relationship with Him. When we feel like our faith life is not taking off like it should. When there's areas of our life that we're trying to be better at, but we're struggling, and it's not taking off. In those moments, what do? We could be like Eleanor and be tempted to be discouraged. This is too hard. It's too hard to live purity, or it's too hard to live generosity. It's too hard to live humbly. It's too hard to live like Christ in these ways. It's too hard to find time for prayer. And then we just give up. This prayer thing is too hard. It's too hard to